Got to talk about James Pearce, Dave. So James Pearce just had a big breakout last season with 10 sacks, and there's a lot expected of him this season. So is he a one-year guy? Doubtful. Looks like he's a progression kind of guy, and that this year is going to be even bigger.
Yeah, I mean, first team All SEC, number one in win percentage and pressure rate. That's above Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, that duo from Alabama last year that we love to watch. I will say this: if he was coming out this past year, even though it was only 1 year of tape, he probably would have been the number one edge defender taken in the 2024 draft. He would have went ahead of Dallas Turner, Laiatu Latu. That's just my opinion. Again, don't hold me to it. We'll see if he can replicate what he did, but the tool, 6'5", 242. He's a run defender as well, 14 and a half tackles for loss. Almost all of his wins were just simply based on what Jon was talking about, that speed to power conversion. I would say the counter moves are what we didn't see a lot of, and I'll tell you why, because he almost rarely lost off the ball. And for him to reach that Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Aiden Hutchinson caliber grade as a prospect, not as an NFL player. You have to prove it in the league to be put in that tier, but as a prospect, and he's within reach of those guys when you're talking about a prospect grade, he needs to show that he can do more than just win off the ball. But the kind of size and speed, it's rare. He ran 23 miles an hour according to GPS tracking data on a play last year. That's top 15 in the country, all positions. Like the guys that you see running in the 4.3s at the combine, that's who you see 23 miles an hour next to. So if he goes out and has another productive first-team All-SEC caliber year and leads the best conference in college football and pass rush metrics, and then goes out and puts out workout numbers like that, this kid is going to be a top 5 pick, no question about it.
He had 28 tackles last year. What do you want to see? And I know it's just a stat, Jon, but what do you want to see from an edge rusher if he's going to be like a top 5, top 10 special guy? And yeah, he's like a 15 sack guy, whatever the stats are. But do you want to see more of a well-rounded player? 28 tackles to me just doesn't sound like enough.
Well, I like to see that. I go back. I mean, I'm old school. I remember when Simeon Rice got drafted out of Illinois. Everybody was high on him. The Cardinals took him number 1, and I thought it was a bad pick because he didn't play the run. And I'm not saying I haven't watched Pearce enough to say that. I'm not going to say he's. I've seen rankings where he's ranked, in the top 10. And again, like I haven't watched him enough to really say. But I like to see a guy that can play the run. But the thing about statistics, you have to be careful of. You got to take a look at how a player is used, and what they're there for. I mean, he's there to rush the passer. So making tackles against the run. I don't know. Does he play in a rotation? It's not something I've studied. So I'm not going to knock him at this point in time based on only 20 tackles. Because, you got to look at who you're playing against. Just like if you're successful, look at who you're playing against. Obviously playing in the SEC, you're playing against some pretty good tackles. So, you'd have to say that, yeah, that's probably pretty good. But you still don't know. You still have to take a look at that. Because, sometimes guys are overrated. Based on and they really are playing against really poor, players, or they may have had a backup one week where they had their best week. I mean, you see some of these outstanding games that guys have, and you really have to take a look at who are they playing against on that particular day. And like I say, and without looking at Pearce, played in the SEC, you got to believe he's pretty good.
And speaking of being able to have an all-around game, how about Nic Scourton from Purdue? Because here's a kid who not only put up sack numbers, Jon, but he also added 50 tackles and proved that he could stop the run as well as the pass.
Well, I saw this kid in person last year playing against Iowa. My grandson goes to Iowa, so I go to Iowa games, and that was a really crummy offense that Iowa has, but this kid dominated in that particular game, and I've seen him. I saw him play. A couple other games. Watching him against other people, and this kid is violent. He's got long arms. He can ward off blockers. He's got a high motor. He never ever quits playing. He's got power. He's got agility. he may not have the best profile in the world at 280, 6'4", 280. As far as the overall quickness, but it's there. And he's got straight line speed. He can bend the edge. He's not extremely quick at the snap, but his snap anticipation is excellent. It's going to be interesting. Like I say, he's not the ideal physical specimen. He doesn't have the probably the elite athleticism that Pearce has, but he does it all. And that motor, you can't knock that motor. He plays, and he does play the run as well as rush the passer.
All right, one more edge guy I wanted to talk about before we move on inside at defensive tackle is Mykel Williams, Dave. Now, here's a guy that does have size. He's in the 6'5", 265 range. So what do you like about him?
The fact that he can play inside out, the fact that he has played inside out and produced everywhere. On that national championship squad in 2022, he led the team in hurries as a true freshman on that defense. So that he's productive. He can play, and he led the team with 4.5 sacks last year. And what I liked about him in relation to the NFL is that he proved that he can be a productive player over the tackle, maybe even as a 3-tech on certain pass down packages. But they moved him outside a little bit more as the end of the year came, and he had, especially in the SEC championship in the Orange Bowl, he had 8 pressures on 34 pass rush snaps from the outside. And so now he brings that momentum into the 2024 season. And it sounds like, according to their coaching staff, based on what I've read, that they are going to put him outside a lot more often this upcoming season. So now you're going to talk about someone that just recently went number 1 overall from that defense, Travon Walker, a guy that is just a freak of all freaks with great length and can credibly project to both inside and outside. He doesn't have as much size, and I don't think he's going to test out the way Travon Walker did, but he might be in the similar tier, similar section of a player. He spent this entire offseason working on flexibility, hands, and unlocking his hips. So that he's working on techniques, and those technique shortcomings do show up. At the NFL, you need to be more than just a talented football player. You need to have the technique down pat. And that he's working on it right now. The tools are there. The production's there. Mykel Williams is in the discussion to be, I would say, one of the top 2 or 3 edge defenders in the entire class.